Now, you don't have to be reminded that since '97, the Iranian influence through Hamas, Hezbollah in Israel and Lebanon, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, and by the way, supplying IEDs and other weapons of death that have killed American soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. It's pretty difficult to show a gesture of goodwill to a regime that doesn't understand the term and frankly is not interested in developing a relationship with the United States of America, that is totally disinterested in embracing any of the values that Western democracies stand for. On the two occasions where they have attacked and invaded the defenseless people at Camp Ashraf, the Iranian foreign minister and other members of that administration have publicly praised the Maliki government for taking on these terrorists. And yet the EU, the UK, on two different occasions assembled a group of distinguished jurists to review the record with regard to these residents and have concluded, as the UK said, to designate them as a terrorist organization is perverse. There's no basis for it. It was the same conclusion that the U.S. District Court rendered about 18 months ago. And by the way, gave the State Department and the Obama administration 6 months to respond. We're 18 months in. I put on my legal hat and wonder why that court hasn't held the President and the Secretary of State and administration in contempt for failing to respond to a court order to get back within 6 months to justify the continued designation of this group of defenseless, unarmed Iranian dissidents. Take them off the list. Oh, by the way, in 2003, 2004, the FBI and the Department of Justice interviewed them individually and concluded that they're not a terrorist organization. And yet, when the European Union sent several strongly worded letters and held press conferences asking the Maliki government to extend the deadline to keep the folks at Camp Ashraf in Camp Ashraf until the UN High Commissioner for Refugees is enabled and empowered and can complete the duty of interviews to try to work with the Maliki administration, blood and treasure notwithstanding, this administration continues to ignore the commitment it also made when they signed the Status of Forces Agreement to protect and defend and provide for the safety and security of the people at Camp Ashraf. Rhetorical assurances notwithstanding, they've attacked twice, killed several dozen, wounded hundreds more. Refused to let the UN High Commissioner in and his team in to do the job. America's credibility is at stake. Our value system is something that we cherish and hold dear. We've sacrificed blood and treasure in Iraq to promote that. And to turn our backs, to be co-conspirators of silence and inactivity on the eve of potentially one of the greatest humanitarian disasters about which this government knows and has known for months, if not years, is as inexplicable as it is inexcusable. So we call on this administration to delist the MEK. The Iranian government has applauded these two attacks, so let's delist them. Prime Minister Maliki, extend the deadline. Prime Minister Maliki, allow either our forces or UN Blue Helmets in to protect the UN High Commissioner and these residents, consistent with the agreement you signed, the Status of Forces Agreement, when you agreed to provide for their protection and safety and security as well. And give the United Nations High Commissioner an opportunity to do the work that he's been trying to do for months, but the Maliki government has opposed and frustrated every single step of the way. The fate of these people, unarmed civilians, surrendered their weapons of self-defense to an American government whose value system said, and whose military said, we will protect and defend you. Our credibility is at stake. America must keep its word. Thank you very much.